Hi, I'm Lisa K. Donner, along with Jeff Charles, Sarah Cowgill, Tim Donner, and Scott Cosenza. And this is the Conservative Five, Liberty Nation's online TV news program. Like it or not, President Trump has a date with destiny, and that date is looming. On January 6th, lawmakers convene on Capitol Hill, and everyone who voted for the president is, well, bracing themselves. Will Congress give the final nod to Biden to make him number 46? What are the chances Republicans will make a last stand and disrupt the vote? Millions of Trump voters believe he is holding back one last silver bullet, locked and loaded, but will he aim and fire? Jeff, you've been writing nonstop about Trump's battle with those calling for him to concede. You think there's something in play here or just wishful thinking on the part of Trump supporters?
Yeah, unfortunately, Lisa, I think we're just holding out hope. I mean, a lot of us, saw what went down with the election, and we saw how, the media tried to cover up, legitimate allegations of voter fraud, whether or not there was enough to give the election to Biden. But I think at this point, we are looking at a Biden presidency. I know that the challenges aren't done yet. I mean, there's talk of Senator Josh Hawley objecting on January 6th. I believe Representative Louis Gohmert is going to do the same. So there will still be challenges, but I don't believe that there's any silver bullet that can come out as of yet from what I can see so far.
Yeah, and from what I understand, Mo Brooks has been leading the charge on this from Alabama for a while. Anyone else want to weigh in on this?
Well, there's plenty of people who have threatened to challenge this. How many actually step up? I don't know. The House Freedom Caucus has 40, 50 activist members, all of whom, as best I can tell, object to the result of the election. Doesn't make any more sense to them than it does to most Trump voters. So, I think there's a pretty good chance it gets challenged. I think it's more a matter, since this is very unusual for somebody to openly challenge an election. Though it did happen in 2016, unbeknownst to many of these challenges were swatted away. So there's plenty of people willing to challenge, but once they do, that's really the issue. What happens when they do?
Well, that's a great question. Scott, you have any thoughts?
Okay, can you repeat the question, please? Just so I it's so particular, all these things, and honestly, Lisa, mostly I'm learning about these processes as we go along. It's not like this is a part of the Constitution I ever paid any attention to before, I don't know, a couple of weeks ago, really. So what happens and when and what people can do, the power that they have to act. Tim said that there's, this caucus is willing to challenge, but beyond saying that, in insufficient numbers, and I know we're going to talk about the vice president in a little bit, but the power to actually move the needle, I don't see it being present here.
I hate to say it, I don't see it either. I know that there are 73 million people holding out hope that somebody's going to draw a line in the sand and dare them to cross it. I don't see it happening. I think people are going to regress. I think they're going to go back to their party roots and go, how do I stay alive? I just don't see it happening. And I think that's a great shame that we're going to have yet another election that half the country believes was stolen, was false. We've got to get that in working order before we even go any further.
Well, the difference is that while on the left, if you can imagine the sides reversed and you had 74, 75 million Biden voters who thought the election was stolen, imagine the rampant violence, the rampage that we would have seen if the result was reversed. And I can tell you that if this one is reversed, we're going to see, I think, literal civil war in the streets. I think that would be the consequence. Not that that should be the determining factor of whether there should be challenged or not, but at this late date, if anything got up momentum to overturn the election, I can't even imagine the violence. It would likely be the same as we saw all summer throughout, urban landscapes across the country.
Well, I think it would be, 100 times worse than what we witnessed this summer. I don't
Might
think,
be.
I think it would be everywhere. Of course, that means all you city folks ought to move somewhere where I live.
Okay, who here can step us through the only possibility we're looking at?
Scott's the constitutional lawyer.
No,
He's
but
the one
he
he's
doesn't
the
have
one
it. Tim, honestly, I don't think he has it as clear as you do. Sorry, Scott.
Don't be sorry. It's okay.
Yeah, Tim, you've got the history on this.
Well, essentially, it takes just one member of the House and one member of the Senate to challenge the election. But from that point on, they would have to literally stall a vote, because ultimately a vote would come on the challenge. But essentially, once those challenges begin, essentially the only way that Trump could win is if they let the clock run out and if the assigned time for debate ends with no vote, then things stand on January 20th with no president. And it's essentially a mirror image process in the House for a vice president.
All right, so we're playing a little bit of Mr. Smith Goes to Washington here. What do we got? 24 hours, 48 hours, 72? What's the deal?
How long is the time frame of the vote? That's critical.
Well, I mean, we don't
Lisa,
really.
I spoke with Liberty Nation's Jim Fight, who wrote about this for the site recently today, and he told me that it's a few hours time from when the challenge issues until the vote on the challenge will occur. That would be the process that would carry that over past the 6th, which again, I think it's important to add, is extraordinarily unlikely to occur, that would be a successful vote to challenge these results.
Yeah, and it doesn't seem like there would even really be a way to filibuster this into a scenario where Trump still holds on to the presidency. I don't know if they can push it back that far.
And I think politically, there's too many Republicans who feel like they'd pay a steep price in 2 years if they support this last gasp effort.
As well they should, I say.
Yeah, and I think that's what we're running into now. They're just, it's at the point, I mean, politicians, what are they concerned about the most? Republican, Democrat, doesn't matter. It's the next election and their own political fortunes. That's what they're looking out for right now. And on balance, being on Trump's side with this extraordinary appeal that might happen with challenging the electoral vote, that's not something that they feel is going to increase their support.
And in that vein, there is a silver lining here. Regardless of what happens with the presidential election, I am seeing a conservative base that is riled up and ready to go. And they're angry, but they're not just angry at the Democrats. They're not just angry at the activist media. They're angry at the establishment as well. So when we're talking about politicians who are looking to the next 2 years, 2022, I'm seeing a base that could be galvanized into ensuring that we actually get Republicans in office who are actual conservatives, rather than people who are just going to kowtow to the Democrats or the people who want to go back to the days of Mitt Romney, the old establishment days. I think that this sets us up nicely. And with Trump, even if he's out of office, he's still going to have a lot of power, a lot of influence, and he's not going to shut up. He's going to make his opinions very well known. And I think that this will be a good time to keep our people accountable.
Well, and just kind of coattailing with what Jeff just said, red states are angry. People are angry, and they're angry that he's not getting support from Republicans. They are calling on people to rise up and run against these yahoos in 2 years. They feel have been traitorous to the party and to their president. So, they're between a rock and a hard spot. I think if they, just thumb their nose at the process and go with the Democrats and don't stick up for their president, I think they're going to be in trouble in 2 years. I don't think they're saving their political hides whatsoever. I think they're, putting the last nail in the coffin on their own accord.
Both parties have a decision to make here. The Democrats have to decide if they want to be fundamentally a progressive party or a traditionally liberal party. But the Republicans have to decide if they want to be, like Jeff said, the old party of Mitt Romney and John McCain and George Bush, or the party of Trump, because he's the guy that got the presidency 4 years ago and got 74 million votes this year. So that's a pretty fundamental choice because one is a populist vision and one is a traditional conservative vision. One is an on the ground, one is a 20,000-foot philosophy of how government should run. These are fundamental choices. And I guess the question in Georgia is how many people that wouldn't vote for Trump because of his personality will come out for Kelly Loeffler and David Perdue, and how many people that were all jazzed up about kicking Trump out are going to be similarly energized to come out for the Democrats, Warnock and Ossoff.
Honestly, you brought something interesting, Tim. If Trump doesn't have a Hail Mary in the works, I think there's going to be a lot of people more than a bit disappointed. And it'll be fascinating to see just how many people plan to show up for that march coming up in Washington, D.C. Of course, Liberty Nation will be there to cover. Scott Cosenza and Graham J. Noble are going to be on the ground. But, I doubt we'll see the mainstream media lining up to cover it. And this is a travesty that our media has become such a propaganda of the Democratic Party. And there's going to be so many people, I think, that are not going to be willing to say that Joe Biden is the legitimate president of the United States.
It's a problem of great magnitude, and not just for this year, but going forward, because it's really, as much as this election has been contested and argued about and debated and not accepted by the great bulk of Trump voters, for me, I think the danger going forward is even worse because the attempt to create a fraudulent result was successful. What does that mean? It means they'll try it again. Witness Philadelphia, who Scott can tell you an awful lot about. They keep employing election fraud over and over and over, and they never get caught because a key part of it, a successful election fraud, is not getting caught. So that my concern is pretty much even greater going forward.
Yeah, what I'm hoping for is that after this, Republicans in these battleground states will see what happened during 2020 and put in measures to fix this in time for 2024. Now, if they don't do that, they deserve to get primaried. And I will be shouting that from the rooftops. But hopefully this will learn a lesson from this, because you're right, Tim. I mean, the Democrats are going to try to do this again. We need to put in obstacles to prevent them from doing that.
Well, January 6th is right around the corner. We don't have long to wait for the wackiest election of our lifetime to be officially closed. And my guess is Scott would say, not a moment too soon. Stay tuned, folks. This is sure to be a wild ride. And that's it for our Conservative 5 panel today. Check out our other C5 shows and segments on your favorite video platform, YouTube, Vimeo, Rumble. We're on them all. As well, Liberty Nation has its own Roku channel where you can see all our TV productions. Thanks so much for tuning in. And remember to surf on over to libertynation.com. Sign up for our new member zone, just $17.76 a year. And remember, liberty all the time and everywhere.